Wagner mercenaries, which had been threatening to march on Moscow, have backed down after a deal brokered by Belarus. Just 24 hours ago, the head of the Wagner group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, had declared a rebellion after accusing Russian forces of firing on his troops. Now he's left the Russian city of Rostov-on-Don, cheered on by crowds. The city had come under the private army's control when its troops left Ukraine. But Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko intervened, brokering a deal to call off the rebellion.
They wanted to disband the Wagner military company. We embarked on a march of justice. In 24 hours, we got to within 200 kilometers of Moscow. In this time, we did not spill a single drop of our fighters' blood. Now the moment has come when blood could be spilled. Understanding responsibility for the chance that Russian blood will be spilled on one side, we are turning our columns around and going back to field camps as planned.
Under the agreement, the Kremlin has dropped all charges against Prigozhin, who will leave Russia and head to Belarus. Ukraine's president says the incident shows Russia is in chaos.
Today is a day when there should definitely be no silence. Today, the world saw that the bosses of Russia do not control anything. Nothing at all. Complete chaos. Complete absence of any predictability. And it is happening on Russian territory, which is fully loaded with weapons.
Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Penny Wong has made a statement saying Australia is closely monitoring developments in Russia, adding the federal government will continue to condemn Russia's immoral and illegal invasion of Ukraine. For more on the situation in Russia and the implications for Vladimir Putin and Ukraine, we're joined now by Global Affairs Editor John Lyons. John, great to have you with us again today. Just how should we now interpret this latest move involving Belarus now playing a role here?
Well, Miriam, I think it's a high-stakes chess game. This is not the end of the story by any means. Yevgeny Prigozhin is a very smart operator. Sometimes people underestimate him. You don't go from being in jail. I mean, who is Yevgeny Prigozhin? He was in jail when he was 20. As an 18-year-old, he got into crime. He had a tough childhood. 20, he's sentenced to jail for 12, 13 years for robbery and fraud. He then leaves jail, becomes a hot dog salesman, then does well at that, opens a restaurant, does well at that, he knew Vladimir Putin from St. Petersburg, starts getting contracts to cater for the army and for the elite, ends up a billionaire oligarch who basically faced down yesterday the man he used to serve nice meals to. So I think that where this goes next is Yevgeny Prigozhin. They got to the edge of the conflict. They did a deal. Putin didn't want to have the fight. We can see on the picture on the screen now the scenes like a rock star. You know, the warmth, the hugging. He was like a hero. No one tried to arrest him. The security forces didn't detain him. This is a man who has just said that Vladimir Putin has conducted an entire war based on a lie. This is a man who has said that the chief general who drove it did it because he wanted another star on his lapel, so when he laid in his coffin on a nice pillow, he'd have a nicer uniform. So he's gone all out attacking them. He now goes to Belarus. That's the deal. And they came back from the brink of civil war. But I think he will sit in Belarus and plot. The generals, the oligarchs will all now realise that Putin is a weakened figure.
So does bringing Belarus into the picture take some of the pressure, though, off Vladimir Putin? Is that the way that they've had to de-escalate this?
It solves the immediate pressure. We've seen pictures in the last few hours of the Russians, the forces, security people were digging up roads. They had bulldozers digging up the highways that led to Moscow to try to stop the Wagner people getting to Moscow. They got to within 200 kilometres. They were 2 hours drive away. So it shows you not a single soldier tried to stop Yevgeny Prigozhin and the Wagner people. I think for Vladimir Putin, that would be what he'd be reeling about now. He'd be stunned by the fact no one tried to stop him. They were getting a hero's welcome. So the problem doesn't go away for Vladimir Putin. He is in a lot of trouble.
It buys him a little bit of time, but my next question is, now that we have Prigozhin going to Belarus, Wagner troops now retreating back into Ukraine, what do we anticipate will be the chain of command there?
I think that he'll pull the troops out of Ukraine. I don't think they'll stay there. I think now it's in his interests, Prigozhin's interest, now that he's declared his hand, that the war fails. So I think that's the end of Wagner's fighting, and they've been crucial. They have held Bakhmut and done all sorts of things. And so it weakens the Russian army. And so Prigozhin's, dream plan in a way would be the war fails, Putin's in trouble, they're looking for a charismatic leader who's got the cred. He's got a lot of credibility, Prigozhin, and with the Russian army and with the Russian people. He's very popular. People like him. He's blunt talking. He's been in the trenches. Yesterday, his reason for doing this deal with Belarus is, I didn't want any Russian blood spilt. It's a good line. I mean, it's a very smart political line. Wasn't Putin would have spilt blood, Russian blood, that's the implication. He didn't want it, so he's done this deal. So he's gone right into the lion's cage. He's looked the lion in the eye, and we can see him there. He's straight talking. The Russian government has tried to stop him appearing on Russian television over the last year. There's been a ban on some television stations even having him on. Putin's threatened by him, but has needed him. So it's an intriguing relationship between these two who've known each other 25 years. They know each other's measure. And I think Prigozhin's playing a blinder of a game. I think he knows exactly what he's doing.
And the Kremlin has also dropped that criminal investigation. So what does that tell you?
Well, it says that I think that it's a capitulation by the Kremlin, that they were surprised by, the audacity of Prigozhin to pull his troops out of Ukraine, to go to Rostov-on-Don, to take control of all of the military facilities in the headquarters of what was running the Ukraine war, then say, I'm coming to Moscow. They then get in their cars and their convoys. They then, go off and take Voronezh. They take a second town of control of that. So the message from him is, we go where we want to. Nobody stops him. The Ukrainians haven't been able to kill him. The Russian army haven't been able to stop him. So it gives him this sort of status in a country that appreciates and values its military and its strong men. It gives Prigozhin a really big launching pad. I think at some point he's looking for that political career to be a president. When Putin falls, there'll be a scramble for who takes over. He's now in the sort of box seat.
So, as you say there, Vladimir Putin's authority is completely, undermined by these developments. What do you anticipate might be going on there in terms of the political power plays, the allegiances that are being drawn up there?
Well, yesterday we saw the speech of Putin. That was not sort of your classic confident Putin. So I think there'll be a lot of people who've been watching this catastrophic war for Ukraine. It's been a disaster for Russia in every sense. The thousands of young Russian lives that have been lost needlessly, the destruction of their neighbour, the international sanctions. The oligarchs have had all their yachts and apartments in France and other places frozen. So I think now there'll be plenty of people sitting there plotting. If they've got a chance to get Vladimir Putin, they will. I think someone will strike at some point. It's a matter of working out the coalitions, the private armies. You've got this sort of chessboard of the Gazprom private army of 50,000, Wagner's got 25,000, someone else has got 20,000. How do you stitch together an alliance, get the right people on the inner circle and then strike? I think that now it's a matter of Putin will be watching not just the cups of tea that he drinks because he's convinced someone's trying to poison him, but I think he'll be watching every person around him.
Now, taking that chess analogy a little further, we had Prigozhin targeting, in particular, the Defence Minister Shoigu and the military commander Gerasimov. Are we anticipating any changes in terms of Russia's military command?
I don't think Putin could do it at the moment because it would look like he was bowing to Prigozhin. But Putin has been often getting rid of a national security advisor or the people running the campaign in Ukraine. He's dispatched a lot of them, sacked them. And so each time he sacks someone like that, he gets another high-powered, powerful enemy there. So in a way now, he's got that little Praetorian Guard around him of people who will protect him, the ex-KGB people, the people he trusts, but the waters are lapping up at the edge of him. And I think that at some point, he's got a meeting with destiny, he's going to meet his own fate. And he realised yesterday that that could come close.